Our dish today is going to be butternut squash, apple, and Gruyere turnovers. This is a recipe by America's Test Kitchen from their book, The Savory Baker. There's lots of recipes in this book, and they do end up using a good amount of puff pastry. So luckily I had a little bit left over from a previous video I made. First thing I'm going to do here is peel off my butternut squash and apples. These are Granny Smith. The book does say you can use Macintosh. Afterwards I de-seeded and now I'm slicing up the butternut squash. They do say that they should be sliced about half an inch thick. I do think I sliced up my apples a little bit too thin, so they're going to end up cooking a little bit faster than my squash when it hits the pan. Next up I'm going to mince up my shallots here, trying to avoid slicing off my fingers. And then we have everything assembled and prepared. We have our butternut squash and apples. We have 4 tablespoons of butter, divided evenly. Our mixture in the back is salt, pepper, brown sugar. And we have our shallots and sage ready. First off, I'm going to brown some butter in a pan. That's the first 2 tablespoons. Adding in my sage. You'll see little brown bits. After it's done, I'm going to take it off, put it into a little ramekin, and let it cool down. I cook off the squash and apple. The other 2 tablespoons of butter, put in my squash and my apples. As you can tell, I probably should have used a bigger pan. Add in my spice mixture and then try to mix up as best as I can and then cover it up. I check in on this every 5 minutes or so to make sure that nothing's burning on the bottom and it's browning a bit. After it's finished, I take off the heat and then I'm going to add in my apple cider vinegar. I'm going to take a potato masher and mash up my mixture until it's softened up and mixed. After the brown butter and sage is cooled off, I'm going to add the mixture in and fold it through. You can see it's quite a bit still hot, and I'm going to set it off to the side and let it cool down. Once that's cooled off about 45 minutes to an hour or so, I'm going to fold in my Gruyere. This is about 3/4 of a cup, I think maybe even a little more. Afterwards, I'm going to start working on my puff pastry, which I defrosted the night before, or thawed the night before, rolling it out. Their book says to try to aim for a 10 by 10. I'm pretty sure I didn't get it to that point. I got to maybe 10 by 8. So you'll see that my turnovers are kind of janky in size. And then I have little rectangles there, adding about 2 tablespoons worth of mixture into each of them. I'm brushing it with some egg wash, just 1 beaten egg with a splash of water, putting it around the perimeter of each of the pastries there so that I can fold and create a good seal. So only one ended up looking like a turnover, the other ones are nice little rectangle pockets. After I've squeezed out the air and pressed on the sides, I'm going to use a fork there and just crimp off all the edges. And I'm going to take a pair of scissors and cut 2 1-inch slits into each of these to make sure that the steam can release as it cooks and doesn't bubble up and ruin the inside of my pastry. And then I'm going to cover it up with some egg wash for all of them. Make sure they brown nicely. And then add in the rest of my Gruyere. Toss into the oven. This has been preheating at about 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's going to go in for about 20-25 minutes or so until I start seeing some good browning without any burning. Set it aside and let it cool off before taking a bite yourself. So I'm going to cut it open. This is pretty crisp and it tasted like squash and Gruyere. The only thing is I'd probably add a little more apple next time and probably brush it with some sage infused butter to end, just because I'm losing a little bit of the sage just because the butternut squash and the cheese is so much stronger. Otherwise, it was a satisfying turnover. Good for fall. Would recommend. Thanks.